Welcome to the channel, and welcome to today's game of Grimdark Future Firefight using the one-page rules. Today the forces will be fighting in this manufactorum area somewhere in the galaxy, fighting for control of 4 objectives. We have 1 over here on the left, 2 in the center, and 1 on the right on that little bridge walkway. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead. This will be a simple game, so we'll just go ahead and take a look at the forces. Starting with this force, these are the Death Corps Krieg. We're not going to bother using the one-page rules names for them, simply just because I prefer to call them what they are. So, leading the force is 300 points. We have our company leader. He is quality 4, defense 4, tough 3. I've made him a munitioner, so he has the focus fire ability, and he has heavy armor. And then next we have, what do we got? We have an infantry squad, 3-man. They're just standard rifles, close combat weapons. And then we have 2 more infantry squads, but they have a plasma gun included in both of their units. So 2 rifles, 1 plasma gun. And then we have our heavy bolter, classed as a heavy machine gun. All these guys are quality 5, defense 5. The heavy bolter is tough 3. And then lastly, we have 2 Death Riders, I think they're called. I can't remember. But yeah, 2 Death Riders, quality 5, defense 5. They have fast and impact 1 with their heavy lances. And that is 300 points of Death Corps Krieg. Moving on to the opposing force. And for the opposing force, we have the Night Lords. We have our champion leader here. He is a chosen veteran, hero, tough 3. He's pretty much just standard. I did upgrade his pistol to a heavy pistol. He is quality 3, defense 3, and tough 3. Everything else is standard. Weapon, close combat weapon, heavy. Champion, heavy pistol. Next we have 2 legionnaires. They are quality 3, defense 3, heavy rifle, and close combat weapon. And then we have a Warp Talon. It is a raptor in the rules. He is quality 3, defense 3. He has ambush, flying, and furious. Dual energy claws. And then we have a heavy support with the heavy machine gun or heavy bolter. Quality 3, defense 3, relentless, and the heavy bolter. And then lastly, we have 2 units of 3 cultists. They are quality 5, defense 5. Standard loadout, rifles, close combat weapons. And that is 300 points of Night Lords. So with that, let's go ahead and deploy and begin the battle. Alright, we are done deploying. The Night Lords on this side, while the Death Korps are on this side. Night Lords won the roll-off, so they will be going first. But first, let's take a look at the deployment. For the Night Lords, we have some cultists on the right flank with a legionnaire, my heavy bolter and champion in the middle, cultists and a warp talon up on the scaffolding at the top, and the other legionnaire at the bottom on the left flank. And for the Death Korps Krieg, we have a Death Rider on the left flank, some infantry in the middle with a plasma, the leader on the right, or middle right, heavy bolter poking out through that wall there, the other Death Rider on the right with him as well, and another unit of infantry. And then lastly, the other infantry on the scaffolding on the right flank. So, with that, we will go ahead and start with Night Lords, round 1. Alright, start of round 1. I ran my cultists up forward, heading towards the objective. And then for the Death Korps activation, I ran the Death Rider on top of the objective, gaining him at that point. And then next up for the Night Lords, my legionnaire that was back here ran forward out in the open towards this objective. Following up, the Death Korps activating, starting with this infantry unit here. They are just going to hold and fire at this legionnaire out in the open. Starting with the rifles, got 2 shots for 1 shot for each, needing quality 5. No, both miss. And then lastly, we have the plasma rifle, which will hit on as a 5 as well. And if this hits, it will, AP4 will put a wound on him. Nope, that misses as well. So the legionnaire runs forward, and this infantry squad opens up fire. All the shots missing or just bouncing off his pauldrons. So with that, we will go back to Night Lords activation. Next up for the Night Lords, the cultists that were behind this wall went through that hole there and posted up on the barricades and are now going to fire in to that infantry squad over there. So this will be 3 shots, needing 5s as well. Just the rifles. And that's 2 hits on the Death Korps Krieg. They will get some cover from this, so this will be a +1 just from the intervening terrain. This will be a +1 to their defense of 5, so they have 4 up defense. No, failing 2, which means they immediately take 2 casualties. We'll go ahead and take out the riflemen as the Night Lords gain first blood. Alright, back to Death Korps activation. Alright, next for Death Korps, I activated that lone plasma rifle guy over there. He just moved forward and is going to fire into that cultist squad as well, returning fire. So this will be a 5 to hit. Nope, that miss. Plasma blast slams into the back wall, completely missing. And then with that, we go back to Night Lords activation. Alright, next up for the Night Lords, that warp talon behind that wall went ahead and jumped across over here on the scaffolding here and claims this objective. Moving on to the Death Korps, I'm going to go ahead and activate the heavy bolter, which is going to hold and fire in on this legionnaire in the open. So 3 shots unloading into that Legionnaire. This will be a 5 to hit. That is just 1 hit. And this is AP 1 on the Legionnaire. And so he's defense of 3, so this will be a 4+. Ignore the damage, which he does not. So he takes 1 wound and must now do a wounds effect. So we roll a d6 and add that 1. So 4 plus 1 is 5. He is shaken. So he cannot contest or seize objectives. And he must spend 1 full activation idle to stop being shaken. Alright. So we'll just go ahead and put this die here as a marker to indicate that he is shaken. Let's see. Next, we will move on to the Night Lord's activation. Next up for the Night Lords, I'm going to hold with the Heavy Bolter, and he's going to fire in to this infantry squad behind the barricades. So this will be 3 shots hitting on 3. And that is 3 hits with AP 1. So that'll negate the barricade bonus. So this will be a straight defense roll of 5+ on these infantrymen. So I make 1, failed 2. So these guys immediately lose 2 more men as the Death Korps are getting mowed down. And with that we go on to the Death Korps activation. Alright, next up for the Death Korps, I activated my company leader. He moved forward, or advanced forward, and he's going to fire in at this unit here. But before he does that, he will activate 4 units within 12 inches of him, which will be this unit here, the Heavy Bolter, the Infantry Squad, and the Rough Rider, or the Death Rider. They will get AP +1 to their shots for the next time they shoot, using the Focus Fire ability. So with that, we'll continue on with his activation. He's just going to fire his bolt pistol. It's 12 inches. He is unfortunately not in range. So he'll just stay there, and we will go back to Night Lord activation. Alright, for the Night Lords, I rushed my champion forward towards this objective to try and claim that. Then next up, the Death Korps activating. I then advanced an infantry squad behind the wall here up to these barrels, and they're going to fire into this Warp Talon. So it's be 3 rifle shots hitting on 5s. Nothing. Their shots bounce off his armor, doing no damage. And then with that, we go back to Night Lord's activation. And lastly, for the Night Lords, my lone Legionnaire popped up behind the wall, advancing forward, and is going to fire into these guys behind the barrels. So it's just 1 shot hitting on 3. And a 1 will miss, bouncing off those barrels, not doing any damage. And with that, we go back to the Death Korps Krieg. And lastly, for the Death Korps Krieg, my Death Rider behind this wall here rushed forward, gaining a +4 to his movement to end up right there in the middle, preparing to charge the Night Lords. And with that, we come to the end of round 1. Alright, and at the start of round 2, since the Night Lords finished first in round 1, they go first on round 2. So, I will start off with my Warp Talon over here. He's going to go ahead and make a charge move on this lone guy here since he already has that objective. So he charges in, and he gets 2 attacks with his Warp Talons, needing 3s to hit. And he gets 1. That is no AP on this, so this will be a straight up 5 up. So that fails, so he'll take 1 wound. And then he needs to make a morale test. And that is a 3. So he is just shaken. So we'll go ahead and mark him. And then one of them will have to back up. I think the infantryman will. Let me double check. Alright, next up, the Death Corps will activate. So we'll go ahead and start with the Death Rider over here, who's going to charge into this Legionnaire. So he has 1 attack with his lance, his heavy lance, but he does have impact 1. So I will roll 1 die. When attacking, after charging, unless fatigued, for each 2+, the target takes 1 hit. There's a 2+, so he takes 1 hit. In addition to his 1 attack, I believe, which needs a 5, which I got. So that Legionnaire takes 2 hits at AP 2. So this will reduce his armor to a 5, his defense to a 5. For the Legionnaire, which he both fails, both of those. So he takes 2 wounds. And then he will roll his morale, or his wound effects. That's a 2, plus 2 is 4. He is just shaken. I think he'll hit back. I wonder if you hit back before you take wound effects. Let me double check the rules. Alright, so it looks like you resolve wound effects before the defender decides to strike back. Since I'm shaken, I would need a 6. I'm just going to go ahead and not strike back, so you can remain idle and get that shaken removed next round. So, with that, we now go back to Night Lord's activation. Alright, next up, we're going to start over here with these cultists. They're just going to stay there and fire into that Death Rider right there. So this will be 3 shots, needing some 5s. Got 1. And then it'll be a defense of 5 for the Death Rider, which he fails. So he'll take a wound. And do a wounds effects, which is a 5, plus 1 is a 6. He is knocked out as the Death Riders take, or the Death Corps Krieg take another casualty. They are suffering so far. And then with that, we move on to Death Corps' activation. Next up for the Death Corps, I'm going to activate this heavy bolter over here, who's going to fire in at this wounded Legionnaire over here. So 3 shots, needing 5s. Oh, I didn't get a single one. That's rough. Alright, moving on back to the Night Lords. And for the Night Lords, these cultists over here advanced around the corner, and I'm going to fire into this Death Rider. So it's 3 shots hitting on 5s. And they got 2 hits. And that'll be 2 5-up saves for the Death Rider. Making 1, failing 1, so he'll take 1 wound. And then roll on the wound effects, which is a 6. Oh, jeez. And just like that, the Death Corps Krieg lose another unit. They are suffering badly. Alright, moving on. back to the Death Korg activation. Alright, and for the Death Korg's activation, we're going to activate this lone plasma guy here. He's going to fire in to this Legionnaire out in the open. So, needing that 5. Nope, that'll miss. I forgot I actually get a +1 to my AP. Okay, just a +1. Alright, that misses. Moving on to the Night Lords. For the Night Lords, I picked my champion who decided to run to this objective. Since he already has that one claimed, he then runs over here. And then for the Death Korg, I'm going to activate my company leader, who's going to charge into the champion for a nice little duel. So, company leader, he's got an energy sword with 2 attacks. And he needs a +4+ to hit. So he runs around the corner and tries to strike down the champion. And he scores 2 hits. Alright. And that is AP1. His rending didn't go off, but he did get 2 hits on the champion. So, AP1 on the champion will make his defense a 3+. Or a 4+. Which he scores both. Completely blocking his shots. At which point he will then strike back with his close combat weapon. 2 attacks from him. Scoring 1. This is just nothing special about his weapon, so it's just a single hit. And the company leader will have a defense of 3 since he has heavy armor. And he gets it. So, the 2 leaders continue to strike at each other, deflecting each other's blows. He will back up 1 inch. The objective is now contested. And with that, we go back to Night Lord's activation. Alright, for the Night Lord's next activation, we're going to start over here with the Heavy Bolter, who's going to fire in to this guy again, try and take him out. So this will be 3 shots, needing 3s. Getting 2. These are AP1. So this will be 2 5-up saves. The terrain will cancel out the AP. So just a 5-up, which he fails 2 of them. So he'll take 2 wounds and roll on the wound effects table, which is a 2 + 2 is 4. So he is just shaken. Alright, and then we go back to the Death Korg's activation. Alright, for the Death Korg, these riflemen over here are just going to go ahead and fire in to this guy out in the open. So this will be 3 shots, needing 5 to hit. And I score 3 hits for the Death Korg, getting all 3 shots on him because he's standing out in the open, all shaken. So this will be 3 up saves. And he fails 2. So he'll take 2 more wounds, bringing him to 4. And he's going to need a 1 or 2 to survive. Oh, and he does. No, he needed a 1. 4 + 2 is 6. He's gone. And the Night Lords get their first casualty on the board. Maybe the Death Korg will come back. With that, we go back to the Night Lords. It is just this guy here who will remain idle. I'm not sure if he can still fire even if he's remaining idle. Let me know in the comments. But for now, we're just going to let him say he's going to sit there. And then the last activation for the Death Korg is this guy who's also shaken. So he's just going to remain idle as well. And with that, we come to the end of round 2. Alright, and at the start of round 3, since the Death Korps went last, the Night Lords will activate first. So we'll start over here with these cultists who are going to move, advancing 6 inches to claim this objective, giving them 3 objectives for the Night Lords, and then they're going to fire 3 shots into the leader over here to try and put some wounds on him. So 3 shots needing 5s. Nothing. 1s and 2s, they whiff. Alright, and then we will go back to the Death Korps. Alright, for the Death Korps, we're going to activate the Heavy Bolter, who's been doing a decent job so far. He's going to go ahead and fire into this Legionnaire with a wound. So, 3 shots, needing 5s. And that's just a 1 hit on him with AP 1 for the Legionnaire, so he needs a 4-up defense, which he makes. So he shrugs off that wound, and then we go back to the Night Lord's activation. Next up for the Night Lords, this Warp Talon here is going to try and charge in and finish off this lone infantryman. So 2 attacks, hitting on 3s. Getting 2 hits on that guy. And then this will be 2 5-up saves, which he fails both of them, bringing him to 3 wounds. And then he'll do a wound effect, bringing it to a 5, which is a pass. He just takes a shaken result. So he's shaken. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to hit back, so the Warp Talon will back up as it keeps on raking wounds on that guy. And then we go back to Death Korps activation. Alright, and for the Death Korps, my company leader is going to charge in to try and take on this guy and claim the objective. So 2 attacks with the Energy Sword, needing 4s. Missing both. Alright, and then the Night Lord's leader is going to strike back, also with 2 attacks, needing 3s, gaining 1. No AP on this, so this would be a 3-up save for the company leader, which he makes. So they are fatigued. He'll back up, and then we go back to Night Lord's activation. Next up for the Night Lords, this Legionnaire moves forward and is going to fire into this man here. So it's 1 shot, hitting on a 3. Hits. And then AP 1, I believe, on those weapons. Heavy rifles, yep. So this will be blocked out by the barricade. So just a 5-up save for that Legionnaire, which he fails, taking a 3rd wound. And then a wounds effect. 4, 5, 6, 7. That is enough to bring him down as the Death Korps take another casualty. Alright, moving on back to the Death Korps activation. Alright, it's looking pretty desperate for the Death Korps. So these infantrymen over here move forward, advancing, and are going to fire into this squad up here. So it's 3 shots, hitting on 5s. And they miss all 3 of their shots. So, doing some covering fire, trying to get to the objective. And then we go back to the Night Lords. Alright, and for the Night Lords, we're going to do this Heavy Bolter over here, who has a slight line of sight on that Heavy Bolter over there. So he's going to go ahead and fire into him. 3 shots. Hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits on the Heavy Bolter squad. So this will be AP 1. We'll give them cover for this. So this will just be a 5-up save. So he succeeds with 1, taking 2 wounds. He has tough 3. Okay. So he doesn't have to take any wound effects at the moment. So with that, we then go back to the Death Korps activation, which is just this guy over here who's going to remain idle. And then that just opens up the rest of the Night Lord's activation. Alright, and for the Night Lords, we're going to start over with these guys here, these cultists. They're going to fire down into that infantry squad in the open. 3 shots hitting on 5s, scoring 1 hit. This will be just a 5-up save for those infantrymen, which they make. Alright, so they shrug off that fire. And then it's just my company leader here who's going to charge in to the Death Korps leader and make 2 attacks. Since they're fatigued, he needs a 6, which he gets. And then that'll be a 3-up save for that leader, which he makes. And then he will strike back with his power sword. 2 attacks, need a 6. Nope, nothing. Alright, he'll back off, and then with that, we come to the end of round 3. I believe the Death Korps will have to make, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're still not a halfway yet, so they don't have to make a morale test. So with that, we go to round 4. Alright, round 4. The Death Korps Krieg will activate first. So we'll start over here with these Legionnaires. They're going to move 6 inches to this objective. We're going to say they claim that one. I'm not sure about the vertical rules, but I'm going to say they claim it. And then they're going to fire in to these cultists up here. So this will be 3 shots hitting on 5s. All 3 miss. Alright. And then with that, we go back to Night Lord's activation. Alright, next up, this heavy bolter is going to decide and going to go ahead and fire into those Legionnaires that claim that objective. So this will be 3 attacks, hitting on 3s for 2. AP1 says to be a 6-up save for those guys over there. I make 1, so I take 1 casualty. They're still standing, holding that objective. And then we move back to the Death Korps. Alright, next up for the Death Korps Krieg, my company leader is going to abandon that objective and rush over here to claim this objective. So that'll give the Death Korps 2 objectives they now hold. And then we go back to the Night Lord's activation. And for the Night Lords, my Legionnaire over here advanced forward on this objective and is going to fire in to that infantry unit over there. For 1 shot, needing a 3. Hits. That'll be AP1, so it needs a 6-up for them Legionnaires, which they fail. So they take another casualty. And then we move on back to the Death Korps activation. And for the Death Korps, this lone guy over here is going to fire his plasma gun into that Warp Talon that he is facing down. So it's going to be a 5 to hit. And it hits. And this is an AP4, so he will automatically take that wound and have to roll on the wounds effects table. For a 2 + 1 is a 3, he is just idle. So he won't be able to move this turn. Well, I suppose he could. I'll have to double check. But with that, we go back to the Night Lord's activation. And for the Night Lords, my champion over here went ahead and charged after the Death Korps leader, trying to take him out, and also contesting that objective. So 2 attacks, hitting 3s, 1 hit, 3-up save for the leader, which he makes. The leader will then strike back with his power sword for nothing. So they both blink off each other, deflecting each other's blows. He will back up 1 inch. Still putting him in range of that objective, so that objective is now contested. Leaving it 2-1 at the moment. And with that, we go back to Death Korps activation. Alright, trying to salvage the situation. The heavy bolter comes out of the cover and runs up over here to the middle objective to contest that. So now the Night Lords no longer have that objective. And then we go back to the Night Lords activation. Activating these cultists, we're going to fire into that heavy bolter to try and get that objective back under their control. So 3 shots, hitting on 5s for 1. And that'll be a 5-up save, which it fails. So it takes another a wound. I think it was already on 2 wounds. So this makes it 3. So they now need to roll on their wounds table. I think, let's see. Yes. And they can only, so 3 is still passing, so it'll just be idle. It needs a 5 to run away. And with that, we go back to the Death Korps activation. So, there's no more Death Korps Krieg units to activate. I believe so. I don't think I missed anybody. I might have missed that guy. So just take a pot shot at this unit over here. Hits. That's a 3-up save, which he fails, taking a 2nd wound. Morale test. 3 point plus 2 is a 5. He remains idle. Actually, I just remembered idled units can't hold objectives. So nobody owns that objective right now. And with that, we just have the Night Lords unit over here. These cultists are the last ones to activate. So they are going to rush 6 inches, getting them right there. And that puts them 3 inches of that objective, effectively contesting that objective. And that is the end of round 4 for just 1 objective for the Night Lords and no objectives for the Death Korps Krieg. And with that, we have a Night Lords victory. Thanks for watching, guys.